Nothing will stand in our way.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I will finish what you started.
Who are you? I'm no one.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
The Force. It's calling to you. Just let it in.
Star Wars is filled with moments that you never forget, whether it's what you're watching or whether it's the circumstances of which you're watching something Star Wars related. It's part of the power of what makes Star Wars so special, of what makes Star Wars so enduring. It's what makes the process of maintaining Star Wars and its popularity and continuing to make compelling content difficult when it comes to what Lucasfilm and Disney are producing. The intro to the show, that twinkling right there at the beginning, right, of the keyboard, of the piano. I'll never forget sitting on the floor in the last house that we lived in Oro Valley, Arizona. It was Monday Night Football, and waiting for the full Force Awakens trailer to drop. I think it was in October of 2015. We'd seen a couple of teaser trailers. We had the initial teaser trailer that dropped the prior Thanksgiving of 2014, and then we had another trailer that dropped leading up to this full trailer. But I'll never forget that. And every trailer that has been released for any piece of Star Wars content, for me personally, has some type of memory attached to it. The first episode of The Mandalorian, Season 1, had a very similar impact that I would get watching any new piece of Star Wars content. Live action, the animated shows and the Clone Wars movie didn't have the same sort of impact as the live action Star Wars does. But that very first episode of The Mandalorian carries a very special memory and nostalgic feel attached to it. I went to the movie theater yesterday to go see Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, right? The latest Marvel Cinematic Universe film with Kyle. Enjoyed the film. But one of the things that I said on the drive home and what I told Melinda, because she didn't get a chance to go with us, was, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a lot like pizza. And again, this is all coming from a personal perspective. This is all coming from the My Nerd World. Welcome to the show, a Star Wars podcast, and your host, Jon Justice. That would be me. It's all coming from my perspective. Pizza is my favorite food, right? And it's kind of a stereotype, right? Everybody loves pizza. Pizza's good regardless of, and it's always good, just some is better than others. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is like that for me. They're all like pizza. Some of the pizza, they're all good. They've got a formula that works in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It really is quite incredible. And some of their movies are better than others. I tend to prefer, and I think most people do, the larger epic films, your Avengers, your Age of Ultron, Infinity War, Endgame. I like the spin-off movies, but I enjoy the grand spectacle. They don't carry the same, for me personally, they don't carry the same magical quality that Star Wars does. And nothing else probably will, to be honest. There's some franchises, I think, that have stood the test of time and become classics in and of themselves, modern classics in and of themselves, for a variety of different reasons. The Matrix is one. I use The Matrix quite a bit, mention it a lot, doing the radio show that I host with Andrew Lee on Twin Cities News Talk here in Minneapolis, my full-time gig. The Matrix is a fascinating film, especially when you're just looking at politics and society and how all of that works together. The Matrix is very much an analogy to a lot of different things: Christianity, the modern news media, politics, and all of that. Okay, but that's on a different level. But in and of itself is a modern day classic. But these other films that have cemented themselves within the zeitgeist of society, they just, for me, and I think this spreads beyond me. Obviously, Star Wars is unique and different. Star Wars is truly, truly special for a lot of different reasons. And that's kind of what I want to talk about on the show today. Let's start off here. I stumbled across this before the show started. It's an article from Newsweek. One man's impressive basement renovation, honoring his love for Star Wars, has caught the attention of viewers online. A video tour of the impeccably decorated space has gone viral on TikTok, amassing 4.7 million views in just 2 days. The clip has also garnered 649,500 likes and 18,000 comments. Okay. I loved Star Wars since I was a kid, explained the TikToker known as Patrick to Newsweek. I was born when the original movies came out. I used to watch A New Hope anytime I was sick from home. I was home sick from school, Spurned by his lifelong love for Star Wars movies, the basement redo had been a long-term goal for the fan. I've been wanting to build something in this basement for years. The space had been unfinished before Patrick started the renovations, which he completed himself. The plan was to have a finished basement by the time my son was in high school, so he'd have a space to hang out with his friends, he explained. Then COVID happened, and since I was stuck at home, I decided to begin a couple of years early. Patrick's video tour starts with him opening the door to his basement, revealing a ceiling replica of the Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope opening crawl, the signature yellow text that opens each of the Star Wars films. Heading down a flight of stairs and down a corridor, Patrick highlights his extensive collection of Star Wars posters hanging on the walls as he reaches the main space. A fully furnished room featuring a kitchenette and screening area is finally revealed. Patrick spared no detail in his renovation. Glass shelves house his many Star Wars action figures, while an encased glass coffee table showcases a large Lego replica of the Millennium Falcon, along with other iconic Star Wars spacecraft. As Patrick told Newsweek, his favorite feature in the basement is the bar top, which features his 1990 Star Wars action figures displayed under a glass countertop. The video's final cut reveals what is perhaps the most impressive feature of the room. On either side are light-up panels, which give the room a futuristic blue look. Meanwhile, an impressive lineup of glowing lightsabers lines one wall. According to Patrick, the majority of the items displayed in the room are things he'd already collected. The lightsabers, however, were chosen alongside his 12-year-old son. My son and I started collecting lightsabers in November of 2019, hoping one day to have a cool space to display them, he said. So we accumulated 11 of the 12 sabers on the wall specifically for the project. An enormous amount of effort Patrick put into his basement did not go unnoticed by viewers, with many of them commenting that they wished the space was their own. Patrick said, "It's been fun to see the response. I'm glad that people appreciate the hard work I put into it. There have been some toxic moments, which is disheartening, but I try to focus on the positive ones as much as I can." So what's really interesting about this viral TikTok video and this tour is that as someone, and this is in no way, shape, or form to diminish what Patrick has created, but as somebody who collects his own toys, I have 3 full cabinets filled with Star Wars toys, each of them with 4 shelves each, along with a rack filled with my vehicles, and then every single flat counter space in my office is covered in Star Wars toys. As a matter of fact, if you were to spread out and separate out and put on display in the same fashion that Patrick did his collection, in terms of just individual pieces, I probably have as much as he does. I've watched a ton, and I really enjoy it. I've watched a ton of videos of people's Star Wars collections. There are some Star Wars collections out there that will absolutely blow your mind. Patrick's is cool, but it is nowhere near as extensive, as detailed or unique as some of the other collections that I have seen on YouTube. There's one individual who has multiples, in boxes, out of boxes, of every single Kenner original trilogy Star Wars toy, action figure, tchotchke you can imagine in this massive basement floor of this palatial home that he has. It's one of the most incredible displays I've ever seen. I've shown it to my entire family. Patrick's video on TikTok has gone viral because not everybody is like Jon Justice. Not everybody goes out there and seeks individuals' personal Star Wars collections. He just happened to put his up on TikTok, put a Duel of the Fates video behind it, audio track behind it, and it's gone viral, as things tend to do on social networking through really no effort on his own, right? I think a lot of people are just, for the first time, seeing that there are fans out there that have collections like Patrick's does. But Patrick's is not unique by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, it is much smaller than the vast majority of ones I've watched online. And again, that's not to diminish anything of what Patrick has created at all. But this rolls back to what I started the show about for this week's podcast, and that is just how special and unique Star Wars is and how it differentiates itself from so many other intellectual properties out there and pop culture sagas. I don't think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is ever going to be able to reach the fan and touch the fan the same way that Star Wars does. Now, this isn't to say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe can't be more popular or that people may go watch the Marvel Cinematic Universe films more and it might make more money. It is to say that on that emotional connection angle of it, Star Wars is truly special and unique. What I'll be interested to see is, will that nostalgia and connection continue to be made for future generations? I am of the generation of individuals who was blessed to go and see Star Wars in the movie theater, taken by my father, who was also a part of that generation. But we are two different generations who have seen that. I'm raising children who know that I'm a Star Wars fan, and they themselves are Star Wars fans, but they don't have an attachment to Star Wars the way that I do. And I wonder what Star Wars will become, and I've wondered this quite a bit on the show, what Star Wars will become in the future, based off of just how much content we're getting and the inability to duplicate what George Lucas did with that special 1977 film, to put something so unique and so special on the TV that it grabs hold of the public consciousness and grows into the biggest science fiction franchise and basically its own genre in all of human history thus far. When I was a kid, when the first Star Wars film came out, and I was probably by this point in time maybe 6 years old, when you look at how long it took the action figures to come out. When that first Star Wars came out, it stayed out in theaters for a long, long time. And I was born in July. That first movie came out in May. I was 5 years old the first time I saw it. So I'm pretty sure I was probably 6 years old when I had one of these first memories beyond the film, seeing the film for the first time with my father in Southern California. I remember being at a dentist office with my mom and being scared to death being a kid, being at the dentist, right? No one likes going to the dentist. Still don't like going to the dentist. I find myself going more often now that I'm older, but be that as it may. And my mom had for me a C-3PO and an R2-D2, still in the packaging, right? The carded C-3PO, R2-D2. the first wave of the action figures to be released. And I actually still have them. I'm looking at both of them right now. They're in my they're in my rack. I still have both of those action figures. And this was one of the original R2-D2 action figures that the dome was actually molded wrong. It doesn't actually look like R2-D2. But I remember her holding on to those for me to give to me after our trip to the dentist, knowing how scared I was. I will never forget that moment. It is one of 100, if not more, memories of Star Wars. Again, whether it's in real life experiencing something Star Wars related, or whether it's watching the films itself, that I will cherish and hold with me for the rest of my life. As I continue to record these weekly podcasts, I'll continue to share with you different stories as I do the show every single week. And I'd like to hear from you as well, something a little different for the My Nerd World of Star Wars podcast. I'd love to hear your special stories of Star Wars. Not necessarily things about the films that you like, but just those cherished memories that somehow involve Star Wars. Because to me, that's the fabric of what makes the fandom so special. That's part of the fabric of what makes Star Wars so unique and special. The action figures themselves, if you've never watched the Galaxy of Toys documentary, believe it's available on Amazon. Really fascinating watch. It grabs a handful of Star Wars collectors who are probably my age now. This was recorded several years ago. And they talk about their own Star Wars fandom and their toy collecting. The reason the Star Wars toys were so popular and why George Lucas was so incredibly smart to make sure that he held on to the rights of the marketing was that we didn't live in a world at a time where you could watch Star Wars all the time. You still had to go to the theater to see it. This was pre-VHS. So the only way that we could go and experience the films outside of going to the actual theater was to have the toys at home and to have them in your hands. And it's something that a fan like myself has always cherished ever since I was a kid. And it's why I still collect, even though I can turn on basically any screen in my house and watch a Star Wars, piece of Star Wars content or a movie at the drop of a hat, because they're also readily available. There was a scarcity of Star Wars during those original trilogy years that we don't have anymore, that to me really added to the fandom of Star Wars and made it unique and special. The scarcity of it all. There's an interesting thing that's happening now when it comes to Star Wars collecting, and I don't think they're doing it intentionally. I think this is more of we want to get the best bang for our buck approach when it comes to making new Star Wars toys, but it's clear that they are taking a scarcity approach, picking certain characters to release, whereas before when a film came out, you got a plethora of all the characters, and that rang true for The Force Awakens and for The Last Jedi, but not so much for the Rise of Skywalker. There's a bit of scarcity going on now, because most of the people that are buying toys are individuals like myself or collectors. You just don't have kids buying action figures the way that they did when we were younger, because they've got a multitude of other things in life that can grab their attention, and you're not seeing kids go and act out their own Star Wars stories nearly as much as you did when I was a kid, just because they can go and watch the films whenever they want. It makes me think that I wish there was a way to recapture that. Like I've daydreamed about if my EMBARK series were to ever become a major motion picture. I wonder if you could set up a scenario where you made the film unique in as much as it wasn't going to immediately be released for streaming. You can only go and see it in the theater. Could you replicate what George Lucas did? If you had a film that you knew was special and you knew was unique, could you put it out in theaters for a limited time and really bring about that sense of enthusiasm and excitement? Maybe only offer toys before you can go and watch it again on home viewing. I know that's not the way that the world works anymore when it comes to how we consume entertainment, but I've daydreamed quite a bit if there would ever be, whether it's one of my stories or somebody else, that they were ever able to replicate that uniqueness that Star Wars gave and what George Lucas gave to the world in that first film. It's probably not possible because there are so many different pieces of entertainment out there. Everything kind of gets diluted. When Star Wars first came out, it was truly special. It was truly different and something people hadn't ever seen before. It's the storytelling now that continues to keep Star Wars alive. And that's going to be the most important thing moving forward. I think what Star Wars will be looking at in the future will be something more than likely along the same lines of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where it'll be special for people because Star Wars is unique and special, but because we'll have so much content to be able to consume in so many different avenues and ways and different timelines and characters, that there is a level of it becoming diluted, that the stories will still be good, but it just won't have that unique scarcity that the original trilogy had. And I think that goes back to why that video on TikTok went viral, is because other people that don't necessarily relate to the hardcore Star Wars fan are like, they see a video like that and go, wow, look at all that stuff that guy has. That's so unique and different. It's foreign to them. Where, like I said, for a person like me, I look at that collection and go, man, that's really nice. Nothing compared to a lot of the ones I've seen online, but that's really nice. I'm curious what your stories are. I'd like to hear your own personal tales of Star Wars, like I said earlier, whether it's not necessarily something that you've seen in a film, but more something that you've experienced that relates to Star Wars that you will never, ever forget about. And I'll continue to share my stories as well on future episodes. I've actually gone and made a list, and as I started writing, I had to stop because I had so many different stories that I could tell that revolve around Star Wars, especially during the original trilogy. Seeing the Return of the Jedi for the first time and having the film actually break and burn in the middle of the speeder bike chase and smelling the smoke in the theater is something I'll never forget, and I'll tell that full story on another show. All right, we do have a little bit of news to share with you this week, so we'll go ahead and take care of that now.
This is not going to go the way you think.
So, Star Wars Newsnet has been on the forefront lately of leaks, if you will, details about the upcoming Book of Boba Fett show that'll be dropping on Disney Plus coming up in December. There are some spoilers here ahead, so if you don't want to hear it, then you should probably stop the podcast now, because the remainder of the podcast is going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett. As always, these are the stuff of rumors, some of which the Star Wars Newsnet has confirmed and some of which it hasn't, so take from it what you will. But in their latest report, they discuss how last week they had the exclusive report on Hayden Christensen's return as Darth Vader. They mentioned that last week. They would post another story giving more details on Vader and his collaborators in the upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Unfortunately, the art that they posted caused a lot of problems and concerns for some people, and they were asked to hold their next report on that matter for now. Still, they wanted to share some interesting bits from what they've learned in the last week to quench our thirst. So this time they're talking Book of Boba Fett. So apparently Star Wars Newsnet has more details to drop. But maybe the people that they got the information from were taking some heat, so they decided to hold off on it. We should be getting some trailer footage soon of Book of Boba Fett. We're into the season right now where we're getting trailers for a lot of stuff coming out in December. And the Disney Plus series are kind of following the same lines as like a theatrical release, and we're already getting teasers for movies that are coming out next year. Moonfall, the next Roland Emmerich, I'm going to blow up the planet, Armageddon Tale. That comes out in February next year. We got a teaser for that this week. So I would imagine that we should be getting something relating to the Book of Boba Fett in the very near future. And as a matter of fact, with the details I'm about to share with you, I can't help but wonder if maybe somebody has seen some of this trailer footage that'll be released soon, and that's where these details are coming from. But nevertheless, this is what Star Wars Newsnet had to say. We've learned that in the series, Boba Fett is in revenge mode. He will be going after everyone who did him wrong in the past, and he will also be looking for other bounty hunters. And even more, he will be doing it with a new look to his armor. Now, I'm going to double back to this revenge and what this could possibly mean and couple it with the comments from one of the main series creators. That would be Robert Rodriguez. So I'm going to stick a pin in that, and we'll come back to it in a moment. A few more details here. A full armor change, they write on Star Wars Newsnet, seems unexpected considering Fett's efforts to build his own armor and how much it means to him in The Mandalorian Season 2. But we were assured from the people who saw it that there are distinct differences in how it looks, and that the updated armor looked awesome, with a much better paint job than what we last saw of him in The Mandalorian Season 2 post-credit scene. Yeah, I always thought it was a little jarring when he came out with the fully fresh painted outfit when we got to that final episode of... actually, it was in the second to last episode of Mandalorian Season 2. It looked good, but it was almost too clean, right? Okay. So... It says it's possible that this is a show technique to help the audience differentiate between the past and the present as flashbacks are expected. We're going to get back to that, too, because that's important. You might recall that Boba Fett actor Tamira Morrison revealed that the series would include flashbacks set between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and The Mandalorian. In addition to that, a report from June described the new show as Mandalorian Season 2.5. From the merchandising perspective, having him wear a new armor makes sense so that we can now differentiate him between his appearances in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and the past while selling new toys and figures. On the other hand, the fact that we will be going after those who did him wrong explains the necessity of Empire-era flashbacks, since they might use those as the setup for present-time events. Ming-Na Wen will be back as Fennec Shand, but that's about it as far as actors who are confirmed or even reported for the show. Tamira Morrison did confirm that Rodriguez, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Bryce Dallas Howard were back in the director's chair. The first three are also executive producers, and Morrison teased Rodriguez might have directed more than one episode. In a recent interview with Collider, Rodriguez says that the show will over-deliver, and that it doesn't matter how much he hypes it up, it will blow everyone's mind. Okay, so we do know, or we had a rumor recently that Cad Bane will be appearing in live action. In the series. That was on LRM Online. They dropped that one, I think, last week or the week before. But what I find interesting about this is if you speculate a little bit here. If you go, he's in revenge mode, okay, going after people who wronged him in the past, and we're going to be getting flashbacks to a time between The Empire Strikes Back and The Mandalorian Season 2. You know, you want to talk about blowing individuals' minds, going and having a flashback that is set within the original trilogy that shows original trilogy events from a different perspective. I know for me personally, that would blow my mind. If you've watched any of the Lego tales, there are a series of Lego, the animated Lego tales, right? Not canon, but there's a series of Lego tales, Star Wars Lego tales, where they have characters that run parallel to the events of the sequel trilogy, and specifically The Last Jedi, where you get to see events from The Last Jedi from a different perspective as these characters work their way through events on the periphery of what happened in the theatrical releases. For me personally, that's really cool. I dig seeing that. And I like seeing modern takes on events that have happened in the past. It's probably one of the things that I'm most excited about potentially for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series is we have rumors that they'll be showing flashbacks to Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor playing their respective characters during the Clone Wars, which would be easy to do for both of those actors, since they neither of them are all that old. Hayden Christensen looks like he hasn't aged. A little bit of de-aging could take both Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen back to those prequel trilogy era looks in terms of aging very, very easily. I'm really excited to see that. And while I've mentioned quite a bit that I wish we were getting more storytelling, or getting storytelling that was perpetuating the timeline and moving forward post the Rise of Skywalker, within this timeline, and going back into those other timelines and eras that we're so familiar with, it does open up the door for a lot of different really and unique and interesting ways to tell those stories, again, from different perspectives. And it kind of lines up a bit with what I mentioned last week of how the content that Disney and Lucasfilm is creating right now is almost beginning to fill in the need to actually have to go and watch the original trilogy, to where new fans to Star Wars who may be introduced to these stories for the first time and maybe have never seen the original Star Wars movie will now be able to get themselves familiar with the original trilogy and then perhaps be motivated to go watch those original movies. And like I said last week, they do feel different. The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, not as much as A New Hope. A New Hope is very unique in and of itself, but if you're introducing your Star Wars to somebody, especially a young person, it may not have the same type of impact, and it probably won't have the same type of impact that it had for me as a 5-year-old as it might have for a 5 to 10 to 13-year-old now, because it is a film that was made in the 1970s that wasn't using CGI technology apart from the special editions of what George Lucas made. I don't know if it's Disney and Lucasfilm's intent in doing so. I have to imagine there must be conversations about this. But again, in adhering new fans to the Star Wars franchise, this would be a very unique and interesting and cool way to continue to tell those original trilogy stories, and introduce them to new fans who maybe have never seen them before, and then, like I said, will be encouraged to go and watch it again. It is interesting to me that it does seem as if Disney and Lucasfilm are no longer trying to replicate where they may have been trying to do that before they switched up their film release schedule after Han Solo, or the Solo movie, didn't perform the way that they had hoped. I think that was the original intent, was to try to take the Marvel Cinematic Universe model and lay it on top of Star Wars films and do something similar. And as I started the show off saying, I just don't think you can do that with Star Wars. The Marvel Cinematic Universe established itself from day one as something very unique in the way that they're going to tell these stories. Large, epic movies with smaller offshoot tales in between that tell a larger, expansive storyline, but again, not necessarily adhering themselves to the fans in the same way that Star Wars did for my generation of fans, right? You get your pizza, it's really, really good. Some of it tastes better than others, but I don't have any nostalgic memory or feelings for, let's say, watching the original Iron Man in the same way that I do even watching The Force Awakens. And I guess I'll kind of bookend the show this week and say that it would be really fun to be a part of the story group or to talk to the individuals who are involved in crafting what the stories are going to be for the next 10 to 20 years with Disney and Lucasfilm, and kind of pick their brain on, where they are in terms of keeping that very unique and special feeling when it comes to Star Wars. It does seem as if they're trying to keep that with the cinematic releases. I think that's what Bob Iger meant when they said they were going to be taking a break from the theatrical releases, is that they wanted to create a level of scarcity in at least one piece of storytelling content when it came to Star Wars, and that was the theatrical releases. But this, of course, raises the question that I've raised several times on the show. Is Star Wars Rogue One, after having many years in between the last theatrical Star Wars release in The Rise of Skywalker, is Star Wars Rogue Squadron going to be able to be as impactful and as meaningful as a return to the theater experience of watching Star Wars as it should be, right? Based off the story that we know so far, of this being a story about fighter pilots, I'm kind of scratching my head going, okay, what kind of mythology are you going with here? So again, that'll be very interesting to see exactly what that story ends up actually being. I will say, too, and we'll end the podcast on this week, I do find it interesting that we really haven't gotten any more details about Rogue Squadron. We had some talk about how the screenwriting was going and that they had a story in place, but that's been it. And I'm not surprised by it, and I'm not saying that there's any cause for concern that perhaps Patty Jenkins won't be doing this movie. There's been nothing to indicate that she wouldn't be doing this movie, despite the fact that Wonder Woman 1984 was not that great of a film, and most people kind of felt that way. And we are a couple years out from seeing that movie, and we do have other Star Wars content, Star Wars Visions, Book of Boba Fett, and of course all the shows we're seeing next year. All that being said, I still do find it rather interesting that we haven't heard much more about Rogue Squadron, and I personally hope that we do soon. TalkShowNerd@gmail.com, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com if you want to email me, and I want to hear your Star Wars stories. How has Star Wars touched you in life? What are memories surrounding Star Wars that you will never forget, whether it's when you were younger or whether it happened yesterday? I'd love to hear from you. TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. All right, if you want to support the show, please head over to Amazon.com and search for Jon, Jon Justice, and EMBARK, EMBARK, and pick up whatever book you haven't picked up yet. There are now 6 books in the EMBARK Science Fiction Space Opera series available, with EMBARK Fear the Dangerous Night, Book 6, now available in ebook and paperback. It came out just a couple of weeks ago and is available right now. If you have purchased the book already, thank you so much. Once you're finished reading it, please head over to Amazon as soon as you have a moment and leave a review or rating. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm hard at work on Book 7 right now, and at the moment have it slated for a late November holiday release for what will be, for the moment, the final book in the EMBARK space opera series. So this will wrap up the entire story coming up in book 7, at least for now. So that'll be out coming up in November. So get caught up now and purchase your preferred versions of books 1 through 6 at Amazon.com. Search for Jon, Jon Justice, and EMBARK, or just head on over to mynerdworld.net and click the link right there on the homepage. I look forward to hearing from you and your own personal Star Wars stories, and thank you so much for checking the show out this week. I really do appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
The Force will be with you, always.
My Nerd World.